And I think that's one thing that's going to come out of your application is going to be very obvious to medical schools that you're a hard worker. Hello, Devin. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Tell us a little bit. Where are you located right now?
So I'm from the Houston area. I live about 45 minutes north of Houston.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So great. Well, welcome to Am I Ready? And we're going to talk about you for a little while and see how things are going with you and hear your story a little bit. And then I'll try to give you some input on what I think maybe the next step should be. And does that sound okay?
That sounds great.
Awesome.
Talk about
awesome.
me. So
yeah.
exciting.
Awesome. So we have map pulled up now, and we see the wonderful little charts and stuff on Mapped, and so that's great. And so why don't we talk about the GPA first of all? I always like to go to that first since it's the first chart on Mapped. And so what we see here is now you're currently. So I see Lone Star College System is what's indicated at the top of Mapped. Now, have you been at Lone Star the entire time, or you've been other schools as well, or what?
So no, I got my undergraduate. I've actually been to, in total, 4 undergraduate locations, and it's for different reasons. I started at a community college.
Okay.
Tried to get into a university as soon as I could.
Yeah.
And then I moved from Beaumont to the current area, and I went to Sam Houston for 3 years, which is where I did the majority of my undergraduate in Huntsville. Okay. And then I am currently an EMT-Basic, and I'm in paramedic school. The paramedic school is through Lone Star College, so that's my most recent school. Okay.
Great. So you spent some time, I'm guessing, at Lamar University?
I spent one summer at Lamar University, and then transferred to Sam Houston for 3 years, where I, almost 3 years, where I completed my bachelor's.
Yeah. Okay. And what was your bachelor's degree in?
Biomedical science.
Okay. Awesome. So you got probably most of your prereqs done in that. Is that correct?
That's correct. I did some general ed stuff at the Lamar Institute of Technology, which is a 2-year university there in Beaumont, and then some math courses at Lamar University. Okay,
great. Now we can see by the GPA graph that your cumulative GPA right now stands at a 3.25, science GPA 3.26. We see the cumulative GPA illustrated by the blue line, and then the green line is your semester by semester GPA. Talk us through the green line a little bit. There's some bumps and some valleys and stuff there. So talk about that a little bit.
Sure. So at the start, if you can see the graph, the first semester was fall of 2013. That was right out of high school, first semester. Into the game. I'm the first person in my family to go to college and get a degree.
Okay.
I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was actually at Lamar Institute of Technology. It's a 2-year college. And about halfway through the semester, I thought, college isn't for me at all. I'm not even going to do this. So I just stopped going, and nobody told me anything about dropping classes or anything of that nature. Right. And I thought, well, if I don't show up to class and they know I'm not going to continue with school, so all is well.
Right.
Well, after that semester, right. After that semester, I lived life a little bit. I got my real estate license. I got married. I traveled and did several things. And then I just couldn't get away from the fact that from the time I was a little kid, I always wanted to be in healthcare. My grandmother is a nurse of 35 plus years. She still works in healthcare. She was actually, so my maternal grandmother was my paternal grandmother's hospice nurse when she passed away. So she's a big influence on my life, and I watched her treat patients my entire life. And that's kind of where the seeds started. And so I talked to my wife and just decided, I want to do this. And she was on board. She supported me all the way. And so I decided to try to get back into college. And that's where you see the next point, which is the spring of 2017.
Yeah.
I went through the process again and found out that I didn't get the same financial aid now that I did before, even though I made less money now. And that was because I had a bunch of F's on my transcript, which I did not understand. I learned in that process, though, that how things work, and it's just a hurdle that I'm going to have to overcome. And that's obviously one of the big questions that I have, because that's a significant dip from a 0.25 or something like that from that first semester.
Right.
That second semester, I repeated that first semester essentially with an additional class, and I got a 4.0.
Nice.
After that semester, I transferred to university. And so that's the first dip after the 4.0 that you can see. I did a full load in the summer. I did 12 hours over a summer at Lamar University, my first time in a university. And I had made a C in Pre-Cal 1, my first math class since high school. It'd been about 5 years since math.
Yeah, right.
That's what happened there. And then had some crazy life situations happen, and we moved from Beaumont to Huntsville, which is when I went to Sam Houston. That's fall of 2017. That was my first semester there. It's interesting. Like one thing after another, sort of, is the way it feels. I took a sociology class that I didn't have to take, but I took it just for fun, I guess. That semester, it was online, and for my final exam, I was visiting my grandparents out of town the weekend that the final exam was open, and I had a brain moment, a brain lapse, I guess.
Yeah.
And got my times mixed up, and of course, I waited to the last minute to take the exam, and the last minute was just an hour before I thought it was. And I missed that final exam. So that gave me a C on sociology. Yeah. So that really damaged me there. And then had some A's and B's, which leveled out right at the 3.0 mark.
Right.
And then I kind of was like, I can't keep doing this. So for the spring and the summer, had 4.0 for those 2 semesters.
Mm-hmm.
Again, all of these semesters are going to be full loads. If it's a summer, it's going to be 12 hours. If it's a spring or fall, it's going to be somewhere between 15 and 18 hours.
Okay.
And then fall of 18 comes around. I was living with, me and my wife were living with my in-laws up to this point, and great people. I love my in-laws to death, but you can only live with your in-laws for so long, for some people,
right.
until you have to make a change. So I started working full-time, and you can actually see that on my employment on the activities graph. I started working full-time at night as an assisted living home medical technician there overnight from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. And then I would go from spring up to Huntsville to go to school through the day. And I would try to find some sleep in between, which is a common story, I think.
Oh my goodness.
So we made it work, had to make some money so we could live, and also had to go to school. Right. So it took me a couple semesters to adjust to that. Spring and summer were right around that 3.0 mark again.
Yeah.
And then at the end of that summer, my research PI, she's phenomenal. She sat down with me, and it was just kind of one of those moments where we were talking about, look, you're getting close to graduating. And if this is really what you want to do, you're going to have to make a change. You're a very good student. This is sort of paraphrasing, but this is what she told me: is you're a very good student, but you need to put more effort into this. I know you've got a lot going on, and you have more responsibility maybe than some students, but if this is the road you're choosing, you've got to make that decision and step it up. So I was taking advanced cell biology with her that semester, and I just that conversation meant the world to me, and that she would feel comfortable enough to sit down and kind of give me that come to Jesus meeting, I guess.
Yeah, of course.
And I didn't get a 4.0 that next semester, my last semester in undergrad, but a 3.67, I think is what it came out to be that semester.
Sure.
I made 1B in human biology that semester. And yeah, that's how I finished my bachelor's degree.
Yeah.
And then the spring 19 and 20 bullet that's on there, it's also 3.67. That's paramedic school, and that's what I'm currently in. It's a 3 didactic semester. It's a 3 semester didactic program, and then 1 semester of clinical type
clinicals. And that's full time.
That is. So I work full time for my county as an EMT, and then I also am going to school full time.
Wow. So you're still a busy guy.
I am. And a lot of people, that are close to me know that, but I can't do the board and sit around this very well. So
good. Okay. So really the essential nature of your GPA, it seems to me like, is that if we remove the semester of Fs, that first semester, then it really does change the picture quite a bit, and would, affect your GPA a little bit as well. It's going to go up some.
According to what I've calculated previously, it puts me in the 3.4 to 3.5 range.
Okay, cool. And so, yeah, I think on your application, it's going to be really important for you to reflect and show some good degree of reflection on that. And I think, continuing, to for an admissions committee to understand that, you're a first generation college, graduate, you really had no clue what was going on. A lot of stuff we're intervening in that first semester. And you're really figuring this out as you go, and that first dip, that the subsequent first dip when you shifted from the 2-year school to Sam Houston really is also one of those kind of illustrations of, you're sort of in the midst of things that you've never been through before, and it takes you some time to recover. Now, the caveat to that is that admissions committees are going to be very interested in understanding the depth of what that means to you, and the reflection is going to be super important for you to sort of illustrate that you really know and have gained some wisdom out of all that. That they want to be clear that there's not going to be a big dip when you enter medical school. In other words, because that's going to be a new experience, also something that you've never had before. The amount of information that's coming at you, and the not only the scale, but the depth of that information is going to be, pretty overwhelming. And so I think what they're going to want to be satisfied with is that you have had a chance and have taken the opportunity to reflect on the difficulties of the past, and that you're a better person, a more capable person now than you were at that point previously.
Sure. And how would you recommend showing that? Is that something that you write about?
Yeah, absolutely.
Reflect. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in your application, you're going to want to really talk a lot about, there's going to be some points in the application where they're going to allow you, if there's been some disruptions in your academic journey, you can discuss it. But I also think that a lot of secondary applications will have questions in them about adversity, or about, things that have shown you your ability to persevere and be resilient. So there'll be a variety of different places in the, not only in the primary application, but in secondary applications, where you're going to be able to sort of talk about that. And where you're going to want to be able to say, it's not just this is what it is, but what I learned out of that situation is X, Y, and Z. And that this is what makes me a better student now, a better person now, whatever.
Sure.
That makes sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah, good. So let's shift over now and look at your activity hours. So you've got a whole bunch of community service hours, a total of 14,815.47 hours, most of which look like our community service hours. So why don't we go over to your activities tab?
Sure.
Click on that, and let's kind of view this in a deeper kind of way. So a lot of things you got going on here. So You've been a A&P TA, I guess, at Sam Houston.
Correct.
And did you enjoy that opportunity?
I really did. So not to jump ahead of the game, but my biggest bulk of hours, as you mentioned, was community service. It's 9,000 hours of youth leader and things like that. And so one of the things I did in there is I taught a lot, and teaching is something that I'm really passionate about, especially teaching younger people.
Sure.
So that anatomy and physiology TA. Not only did I get to do a lot of teaching, but I also got to mix it in with something else I'm passionate about. And that's, anatomy. So,
yeah, that's awesome. So would you see yourself perhaps pursuing a career in academic medicine where you can teach medical students and residents and things like that, or maybe not? Or
I don't know if I would. I mean, it's still, I feel sort of far out, but I definitely wouldn't exclude it. Maybe not my entire career devoted to teaching as opposed to, clinical practice.
Right. So. Sure. But it sounds to me like that you enjoy the sort of mentoring of younger kids.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's great. So we've got a lot of teaching and working with kids and stuff over the course of your life, that most recently, especially. So you've got some shadowing hours with I guess a variety of physicians. Would that be accurate?
Sure. So in 2017, I shadowed a spine surgeon. My sister-in-law worked for a spine surgeon, and I just had that avenue in there. That was my first real exclusive shadowing experience. Getting to go into the OR the first time, that was, a highlight.
Amazing. Then, yeah, sure.
I'm sure you probably remember. I don't know if that was a super impactful moment for you, but I definitely remember that first time. So that was exciting. And then I also have the Atlantis Fellowship in 2018 that I did. I went to Athens, Greece with that program, and we were in the hospitals there for a couple of weeks, and I got to shadow a bunch of different specialties. I shadowed OB for the first time, which was just probably my most favorite specialty that I've shadowed so far.
Nice. Yeah. Nice.
Also general surgery, CT surgery, urology, internal med, interventional radiology, a lot of different specialties while I was there for that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's unfortunate it couldn't have been in a more, a prettier location.
I know, it was just miserable.
Right. Yeah. So you've got a whole lot of hours, of course, too, with the clinical experiences, both with the senior living med tech position, as well as your what I'm guessing is the EMT stuff that you do at Montgomery County. Is that true?
Yes. So I worked for 1 full year, full time as the med tech at the assisted living home. That's the Avanti Senior Living. Mm-hmm. And then I'm currently full time employed as an EMT with my county. Yeah. And that's going to persist until I move on to the next step in education for me.
Now, the EMT work that you're doing now, is that in the hospital, or is that a ambulatory
that's on an ambulance
activity? Okay, cool. And you really enjoy that?
I really do. I think the variety's very exciting. It's fast paced. There's a lot going on, a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
Our company, particularly, our medical director does a fantastic job of emphasizing evidence-based medicine and kind of staying on the cutting edge. And I really like that. I learn a whole lot from these people, and it's been a good experience.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's excellent. Excellent.
High call volume as well. So we see a lot of different patients and things like that.
Yeah. Now, Montgomery County, that's where, is that where Conroe's located, or? Conroe,
the Woodlands, Montgomery, Magnolia.
Okay.
Kingwood.
Yeah. Good. So big suburban type areas. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the population is around 700,000, give or take.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So. Cool. Okay. Now let's go back to your dashboard.
Okay.
And what we see here is nothing on the MCAT score. So it's blank. So let's talk a little bit about what your plan is for MCAT prep and then eventually actually taking the MCAT. So why don't you talk me through that a little bit?
Sure. So just like a lot of people, I'm sure that will see this or hear this. I was scheduled to take the MCAT April 25th of this year. I started the Kaplan test prep course in January. I got a scholarship from my school to go through that. Started in January, made it through the test prep course, and I was doing my independent study up until April 25th was my test date. And then on March 15th, the world turned upside down. And, and my test date ended up getting canceled. I was holding out too. I thought, man, this is going to be great. We're just going to make it a month of shutdown, then everything's going to get back right in time for my test. Well,
right.
As we're in October, that obviously still hasn't happened. I know there's some people that are taking the test now, but I was already 3 months into my studying for the test. And I kind of planned to where I would study for 3 months, 3.5 months, dedicate a lot of time to the MCAT. Obviously, I wasn't in school at that point. I just graduated in December. January, I started my MCAT study, very focused on that for 3.5 months. And I was going to give it my best shot and apply this year.
Yeah.
Since it was March when everything shut down, I was kind of at a weird point. I thought, I don't know how long the shutdown's going to go on. I don't know when I'm going to be able to take the test. I didn't think continuing that level of studying for 6 or 7 months for that exam was good. I felt like I was going to burn out going at an extended period of time.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided I was going to delay. I just wasn't going to apply this year just because of everything going on.
Yeah, sure.
And I started, kept working. I started paramedic school to sort of, the paramedic school decision was sort of twofold. Obviously, I get a lot more clinical authorization.
Mm-hmm.
It gives me different exposure. And also it kind of keeps me academically stimulated. I thought maybe it would more so than it actually is because it is a community college program. Nothing wrong with community college. It's just different than hard science university level education.
Right.
So that's what I did. I decided to delay, and I'm planning on basically just redoing that this year. Come March, April time, I plan on taking the MCAT.
Okay. Now, when you were doing your prep before, like early last spring, how was that going?
It was going good. So I say it was going good. My first diagnostic test that I took, I was in the mid 490s, which for my first, I wasn't discouraged or anything like that. Good. I definitely wouldn't want to score that, but
sure.
Given I hadn't studied at all. And around the beginning of March, I believe was my last one. And I was up in the mid to upper 500s. So I was getting closer to that 510. Okay. And 515 was my realistic expectation of where I was going. Obviously a 528 is the goal. I know. I was either listening to a podcast from last week or listening to Ask the Dean earlier. And Dr. Gray had said something about that, 528 is the goal for everyone. Yeah. But 515 I felt like was a realistic expectation, and it's something I felt comfortable with at the time.
Yeah, sure. Good. So your plan is then take the MCAT March, April timeframe next year and apply next summer. That's sort of the plan you've charted out, correct?
That's the rough draft, so to speak.
Okay, good. All right. Well, I think that, rounding things out, I think that there's several points that I would make. I think you've got a good plan. I think that's the one of the big issues for many applicants is having a plan that's a realistic plan. Yours is a realistic plan. I give you a lot of credit for sort of backing away this year and sort of recognizing that you felt uncomfortable kind of with where things were going, and it was a big enough shift in social norms and stuff in this country with COVID happening that you felt comfortable sort of backing away and waiting a year. So that says a lot to me about your maturity, your ability to sort of make decisions that are in the long term beneficial to you, although potentially not super satisfying in the short term. I mean, I'm sure you would like to have, trudged forward and, gotten in, been in medical school next summer and, all that stuff. But it says a lot about your experience and your maturity that you've been able to do that. I think that I feel comfortable with your MCAT plan. Definitely, you've got tons of experience, and that's beneficial. I think it's going to be evident that you are really interested in this pathway into a career in medicine, and that you've prepared yourself for that, and that you know what you're getting into, and that's going to be a really cool thing for you as well. I think the MCAT's going to be important for you because of your academic history.
Sure.
It's a little bit, basically, what the medical schools are going to see from the get-go is a 3.25-ish GPA. They're going to see a 3.26-ish or so science GPA, which is on the lower side, but not a devastating lower side. I think that the fact that you will be it will be clear to the medical schools that you've had to work to pursue this pathway, that you've worked your way through. College, basically, you're working now full time and going to school full time, and so you've got a strong work ethic, and that means a lot. Medical school is difficult. It involves a lot of effort. And I think it'll be clear to the medical schools that you're the kind of person that can do that. And I think that's super important that you are good at managing your time. Time management in medical school is crucial for students that want to be able to not only do well in medical school but also have a life outside of medical school. I mean,
Sure.
you're married, you have other things going on that really are. That you still want to pursue and be active in and stuff like that. And so I would definitely say that you show that in your application, that you have the ability to do that. Best of all worlds, I would like to have seen you go back to school in an academic setting. It's good that you're in school in terms of the paramedic program, that you've done the EMT program and done well in those. I think optimally in the perfect world, knowing that we don't live in the perfect world, but in the perfect world, I would like to see a year or so of strong academic work in a post-bac program to say I can do this on a high level in terms of pure science coursework in biological sciences that really says that the real GPA that is important is the GPA of the 4.0, 3.5 sort of level, and that's what you can really do. Now, you've shown that in your past academic record, and I think that's beneficial and it's going to help you a lot. But I think that, like I said, in the perfect world, that would be a good thing. What I want you to think about is, obviously for any applicant, I always encourage applicants to think positively and optimistically, but plan in terms of alternative realities.
Sure.
So let's say next summer you apply and you don't get in. What's that next year going to look like for you? And assuming you're going to be done with the paramedic school and that you will have finished that out. Now, maybe not. Is that so? If you don't get in, then you will have been finished with paramedic school by that time. Is that correct?
Yeah. So paramedic school, the didactic portion actually finishes this coming spring. So I'll be done with it. I have an internship to do next summer, but
Right.
It's strictly clinical at that point.
Right.
The other thing that I was going to add in there is sort of my number one question for you, and I think it was probably pretty obvious just with the GPA was do you think that with that GPA or trend that it's acceptable to go ahead and apply, or is a post-bac something that I should seriously consider for this coming year instead of applying?
Well, that's a very good question. And what I would like to do, if we can go back to MAPT, is if you could, have you gotten some medical schools identified over on the med school tab
I do.
that you're kind of looking at? Great.
I do. So I will say that my top choices, and I'll give you sort of a little background on this. The Uniformed Services University of the Health Sciences is there.
Okay.
The military route is something that's pretty important to me. I have a little bit of a family legacy with aunts and uncles, and then my grandfather, who was also in the Air Force.
Okay.
I haven't really had the desire to go into the Air Force and just enlist and go through that process, but I feel like the medicine route is sort of the only way that I would go that route, and I think that's pretty important to me. So that's sort of my number one choice. School. Not that I wouldn't, if I didn't get accepted there, of course that I would go with other acceptances. Definitely, but that's sort of the route that I was hoping to lean towards.
Okay, cool. If you could, scroll down a little bit there, and let me just kind of get so you've got quite a few. So go to the second page, and let me just glance at those. Okay. Now, being a Texas resident, is your plan to apply to all the schools in Texas?
I'm going to apply to all, most every school in Texas.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Good. Yeah. I mean, I think for a Texas resident, that's a really important thing to do. Obviously, there are a lot of schools in Texas. As a Texas resident, you benefit by that. I do also notice a spattering of MD school, quite a few MD schools, but also a spattering of DO schools. So I definitely think that's a good move for you as well. If you're particularly if you connect with the sort of philosophy of DO medicine, which I'm just personally a fan of. My own personal physician now is a DO, and even the physician before him was a DO, and I'm very just very pleased with the care that I get from them. So nonetheless, I think that's a good move for you, especially noting that DO schools tend to have a slightly lower average GPA than MD schools are. Not completely in that regard, but I think generally speaking, that's the case. And so I'm pleased to see that for you. There are two public DO schools in Texas, and then one private DO school in Texas, Incarnate Word, and then the two DO schools in the Texas Application Service, one of which is at Sam Houston, interestingly enough.
Right.
And the new one there. Great. So if we could go back then to the dashboard, and what I'll do is just tie this up in saying I'm comfortable with you moving forward. The MCAT score is a bit of a question mark for you right now.
Sure.
And you'll kind of know more about that as you start into the study regime early next spring, and as you move forward. But I do think that it would be beneficial for you to sort of think in terms of an alternate plan. So if things don't work out next summer in terms of this coming cycle when you're going to be applying, I want you to have a plan in place to say what am I going to do, both in terms of my work experience as a paramedic, but also in terms of bolstering the academic work. Even if you just took any amount of courses that you would take at a university level in the pure sciences, I would say focusing in on the biological sciences would be beneficial to you to show that this is definitely a true indication of who I am academically, and really serves to to correspond very well with the work that you've done in the past, which was at that 3.53, 3.538 4.0 level, and then that would be good. So I think charting out that plan, just so that if something doesn't go the way you anticipate it going, if life gets in the way, or if you apply and don't get in, that you'll have a plan in place. You can say, okay, this is the new plan. This is how I'm going to move forward. Does that make sense?
Sure. I guess my question on that would be, so if I apply this coming year, would be, June is the ideal for me. May, June would be ideal.
Right.
Obviously earlier with any sort of step to go over.
Yeah.
At what point do I decide to move forward? Because I think if I were to do that, I think maybe I like the structure of a post-bac program or something like that. So I guess not that it's the only option, like you're saying, I could do, smaller amounts of courses, but I know A&M is not very far from me, and they have a post-bac program that is non-thesis. So it's kind of geared towards people in this situation. Right. But obviously I'd want to start that early enough to where I could apply the next year.
Yeah.
So
and that's always the difficult thing, is because you're sort of caught in the middle ground there. You're applying. You're really not going to know anything until late fall at the earliest.
Sure.
Then and really, depending on if you've got interviews and stuff, you may not even know until into the spring, and even middle, latter part of the spring, if you're on, for example, an alternate list or whatever. Best of all worlds, you'll find out in October next year that you've gotten in, and everything's satisfied, and you can move forward. But like I said, so that's the difficult part, is that sort of middle ground. Do I invest in going into some schooling in the spring? What I would probably suggest is that in the fall next year, maybe doing a couple of online upper division online classes in the sciences. There's a variety of online courses that you can take at reputable institutions. Cal Berkeley is one that comes to mind. There's Harvard Extension. There's a variety of others around the country. I would stick with online institutions that are also brick and mortar institutions, as opposed to the strictly online stuff like University of Phoenix or things like that. So stick with, recognizable named institutions that you can take some online upper division courses. So that way you can sort of do it on your own pace, and you can do it while you're working and in the application process. And then by spring, hopefully a little bit better about kind of how things look, and you could kind of move forward. Depending on, if you got in, then you're not worrying about anything. If you didn't get in, and if you didn't get any interviews, then you can kind of move forward in a more notable way with more online courses, or going up to A&M, or whatever. But so that might be something that you could, at least over the course of the next 6-9 months, you could investigate. If I was going to do that, where would I do it? What kind of what would be a couple of classes that I could do that you may even go. I would say stick with biological science stuff, maybe even neuroscience, if the neuroscience classes are more purely scientific than psychological.
Sure. Okay.
If neuroscience may not interest you that much, but it opens up another option of courses.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah,
definitely. So would it be a bad thing to apply to a program like that? Like you're saying, take some online courses in the fall, and then go ahead and apply for something in the spring. That way it's there. And then if I get an acceptance, I can just contact them and say, hey,
withdraw. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think that would be a very reasonable plan. And moving forward with that I think that's a good idea. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
The only other, if I have time for just a couple.
Absolutely. Sure.
So that 515 that I was talking about, I know you don't like to give, nobody likes to give, numbers, right? But
Right.
realistically, I know that it could be a difference maker maybe for some schools. My MCAT score, given the rest of the story, is that you think that 515 is something that sounds right? Like,
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, 515 is a great score. I would really say, 515 is a wonderful score to have in your mind as sort of this is the goal that I'd like to set this as my target score. But I would say anything in the 510 to 515 area would be a good score to see. I think if you look, particularly if you're thinking about Texas schools and maybe even the uniform services school, they're really looking at a average GPA. Average MCAT score in the 510 to 512 area. So hitting at or above the mean is always good, regardless. And so I think you're thinking in the right direction with that. For sure.
Okay. Yeah. And then the last question I had was just in regard to my experiences. I do have some older experiences that I could add to it. So I worked as a real estate agent for a period of time in between my initial semester in college and then coming back, and then also had some other work experience that wasn't clinical necessarily. Do you think it's worth adding, or do you think, I don't want to put it in there just for the sake of putting it in there?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I would add anything that's significant. And by significant, what I really mean is you're working full time. If you were full time work as a real estate agent, then, real estate is I just went through the process of selling one home and buying another home. And my real estate agent worked his butt off. And, this is not a small, effort type of work. And so it also takes a lot of discipline. And I'm sure that there's a lot of times where things don't work out, the kind of way you had hoped or whatever. So there's ups and downs and, stuff like that. So I would definitely put that on there. And, anything that you think is significant, because one of the things that you're wanting to show as something of a non-traditional type student is that you are a hard worker. And that you're not opposed to working and working hard at what needs to get done. And I think that's one thing that's going to come out of your application is going to be very obvious to medical schools, that you're a hard worker and that you have the motivation and the discipline to do what's got to be done. And so that anything that really illustrates that, I think you want to put that on there.
Okay.
Absolutely. Plus, who knows, maybe somebody on the admissions committee wants to buy a house or something. You never know. I don't know if your real estate license is lapsed or not, but yeah,
it has actually.
Oh, rats!
But I definitely know some people in the game, right?
Yeah, I bet you too.
Slide a business card over or something.
There you go.
So.
Well, Devin, it's been a delight to talk to you tonight. I hope this has been helpful for you, and thank you for allowing us to peer into your private life a little bit. And
absolutely, thank you.
Good luck to you in the future, and keep us informed how things are going. Off and on. Just let us, every now and then, send us an email or something. Let us know how things are going.
Of course, absolutely. Thank you so much.